So I just want to welcome you to this conference, OUR NHS. My name is Sandra Musk and I'm from Worthing People's Assembly. And together with the GMB, we bring you this event. We've got, you should have picked up a programme. We have a fantastic lineup for today. We have stalls from Sussex Defending the NHS, one established as a supporters group. And Sussex Defending the NHS have also got part of their exhibition at the Queen's, which is out in the foyer, so I'd encourage you to go and have a look at that. You will have seen in the programme that those with Eagle Eye would have spotted that we advertised for David Graeber. Unfortunately, he's not able to be with us today. He sends us good wishes for the day, and hopefully we'll get him on another occasion. So just the housekeeping, there's no test planned. If the fire alarm goes, the fire exits are there and the assembly points right there, so please leave the building. We have medical assistants here, but I need to speak. We have volunteers on reception and they can help you if you need anything. And just basically have a really fantastic day. The cafe's open until 3, serving lunch and lovely cakes, so hopefully you'll have some refreshment. I'm just going to hand over to Attila, who will officially launch our conference. Thanks.
Morning all. Still a bit of a great deal of I've got something and my band Barnstormer. It's still a bit fragile this morning. Strong coffee, but it's lovely to be here, and obviously, you know, I don't need to say any more than there will be said all day about why we're here. I should to read a little bit of personal stuff about it first of all, my latest book. I have an incredibly, obviously as we all do, we all have our own stories about why the NHS is so fundamentally important, the way that they've helped, the way it's helped us, our friends, our loved ones, you know. I have a very personal story in many ways, and very personal, as you'll hear in the second time, of my own experience recently with the NHS. I was diagnosed with bladder cancer in 2015. That inspired the title of my latest book, which is called Undaunted, latest book of poetry. The subtext is not just bladder cancer, but obviously Brexit and Trump as well. So it's like, you know, I'm just doing a little bit on that. I can start off with this time that I wrote in between being diagnosed and finding out how bad it was, which is the most difficult bit of all. I'm sure anyone who's been through anything like that, once you know what you've got to deal with, you know, whatever, you can confront it. But when you don't actually know, it's that bit when you're waiting for results. I wrote this at that point. It's called In Training. It's dedicated to the NHS and to my wife, Attila. I've always loved cycling, but never as much as today. 40 miles through the Sussex countryside on a beautiful spring afternoon. In training, testing myself like a boxer preparing his body for the fight. Fitness helps post-surgical healing, they told me, and alcohol hinders it, so I've given up beer until after the operation. You know, I'm criminally overstretched and underfunded NHS with so many people in need. This red rocker doesn't want to be a bed blocker even for one day. The nerve, the biopsy, it's the weight of the not knowing that's the worst. But back in the old days of the 80s, but we knew that fascists were going to attack the gig. We didn't know whether there would be a pathetic gang of scrawny 18-year-olds high on glue, one with "Oi" tattooed in his forehead the wrong way round, because he'd done a DIY job in the mirror. There honestly was one, once there really honestly was one. Or a big gang of the really hard bastards, all DMs, tattoos and Nazi salutes. During the day it's okay, more or less. I have a full life. I can mostly put things to the back of my mind. But at night, I wake to that same recurring dark thought, and sheer human fear takes hold. Then your warm arms embrace me, your soft breasts enclose me, your lips meet mine, we hold each other tight, your bush against my leg, and I'm holding it. It's a wonder and an honour to me, this love, especially given my regular deficiencies in matters of etiquette, self-effacement, you name it. And I return it with all the force of my being. I love you so much. I know how hard it is for you too. Thank you for being there. My heart goes out to those who have to face such things on their own. My deepest respect to the people whose profession is to help them to do so. Like all those at the core of our wonderful NHS, they are the ones to be celebrated. The real celebrities, not some fucking dork off a game show. That needs your vote, annual campaigning, victory to junior doctors, victory to Jeremy Corbyn, long live the NHS. I've always loved cycling, but never as much as today. 40 miles to the Sussex countryside on a beautiful spring afternoon. In training, testing myself like a boxer, preparing his body for the fight. Blood coursing, legs pumping, thoughts racing, muscles flexing, bursting with life. Cheers. cancer. I had an operation on the bladder, and after loads of more tests, I've got the all clear for the moment, which is great. And the next one's about the tests, and it's about the NHS, and it's about the need to go and get yourself looked at if you think you've got something wrong with you. And men specifically, and men of my kind of age, have a thing called embarrassment when it comes to those sort of bits, right? Now, I don't have an embarrassment gene, I never have had. It's one of the reasons I've had to my nibbles into the Stockbrocker for 38 years. I don't know what embarrassment is. My wife wishes I did, but I really don't. So I can talk openly about this stuff without the slightest worry. I bloody my urine, I went to the doctor, I had the test. I wrote this poem basically to encourage people, especially men of my kind of age, to go to the doctor, you know, if there is something that isn't right. And it's actually an ode to the process by which you are tested and cured if you have bladder cancer. A process known as flexible cystoscopy. Now some of you will know what that is and some of you won't. But everybody is going to discover exactly what it is very graphically in the next minute and a half in this poem, which is called Can You Camera? I know that I can sometimes be a loudmouth, stroppy brat. I know I'm a control freak and a bossy one at that. My wife says when I'm eating, I am a total slob. I'm still not sure that I deserved a camera up my knob. The poor thing shriveled up in fear till it was hardly there. A tiny little pimple in a nest of pubic hair. The camera made its entrance, the pain cut like a knife, and then I saw my bladder for the first time in my life. I'm glad it went up there, though sad at what it found, but it can come back any time to help me stay around. So 3 cheers for the NHS for that camera crew. And if you're feeling odd down there, you get it checked out too. Thanks. I could do a whole 20 minutes of poetry about the NHS, but I'm going to broaden it out now to deal with some of the unbelievable things that we have to deal with right now. So the whole Trump thing it's beyond satire, it's beyond anything now. And I wrote this just when it was just really weird and strange and completely offensive, rather than actual danger to the future of the world. That the President of the United States and his henchmen actually actively supporting neo-Nazis and fascists is really quite something outside of even people of our age. It's not comprehension going back to the 1980s and the miners striking the battles against that. So this is a whole new ballgame. It's completely. So this one I wrote just when it was just strange and weird, and that this is just even worse than George Bush, you know, and that is very difficult, isn't it? Teresa the Appeaser met the Lady Garden Squeezer. Her brain was in the freezer, she treated him like Caesar. He's a really dodgy geezer, tell Queen Liz if he sees her, grab his dog with a tweezer and revoke his fucking visa. Cheers. This one is a poem that I really didn't want to have to write. But I had to write it, and it references my history in politics and activism and culture. It's actually about my boots. It's called My Dr. Martens. I was about 16 when I bought my first pair. Cherry red, like that Groundhog song. And the lovely record label named after it, which published my early albums and more than 30 years later, my autobiography. Since then, we've had the same relationship as Tories have with the poor in this advantage. I've looked down on them constantly. This poet has measured out his life, not with coffee spoons, but lace-hole numbers. And his cherry blossom has always come in a tin. The number of holes diminished as the years advanced. In the Scar Wars of the 70s and 80s, when Babylon burned, the screwdriver twisted, and we stared at the rude boys in a ghost town called Mullis, there were 12, with turn-ups to show them off. They were my trident. A sensible deterrent, which cost 20 quid, not billions, and when it failed, as it occasionally did, caused minor local damage to some bigoted bully, rather than blowing up the whole planet. Of course, there was the odd bit of incoming fire, when the jackboot was on the other foot, and the smell of brown leather blended in with the weather. But I'm here to tell the tale. Time passed. We thought, plenty more battles, but that one's over. We've rocked and rucked against racism and won. By the middle 90s there were 10 holes, then 8 or 6. And now, in the summer at least, I sometimes wear the shoes. A couple of years ago I found a pair of 12s in a long unexplored cupboard. Songs and phrases came into my head. I smiled. My wife took them to the charity shop where she works. On Friday the 9th of November 2016, the day Trump was elected president with a minority of the popular vote, 5 months after the chaos of Brexit, the racist crow and the internet threats began again. Enjoy it while it lasts. We will crush you, traitor. Although I'm 59, now 60 years old, I wish those 12-hole DMs were still in the cupboard. But I still have the 8 and the 6. I don't want to fight anyone, I never have. But we will not bow to this hatred. Get your boots on, folks. It's starting again. It's starting again. Cheers. And Brexit. What a fucking pile of bollocks that is. Really serious. Sorry if anyone's offended by my language. But I mean, and I'm not, you know, I'm a communist. I'm not going to cheerlead for multinational capitalism and the machinations of the EU. But what an absolute complete. I mean, the Morning Star that I write for supports Brexit. I think they're nuts. I mean, I can understand all the arguments, but you know, ultimately it comes down to this. This is an old punk rocker's memories of what it used to be like before Brexit. If you wanted to play music anywhere the other side of that bit of water over there. And it's obviously not just about musicians, it's about everybody and everything, and the whole kind of communication, the platforms of communication and the way that we talk to each other and relate to each other, you know, across the whole of Europe. Because whatever the Brexit is or whatever thing, you know, we are actually in Europe. You know, there are a certain limited amount of continents in the world, and Europe is the one that we are in. Whether or not, you know, they like it. You know, anyway. So this is called Rock and Roll Brexit. I've just toured my band Barnstormer from Dunkirk to Lucerne and back through France, Belgium, Germany and Switzerland without showing a passport once. Yes, non-EU Switzerland too, a little bridge, an empty hut. In my punk rock youth, I remember how musicians had to carry carnets for our instruments when we crossed the channel. Everything down to the last spare string, painstakingly listed on a pointless green form, checked and stamped at every border after standing with the truckers in endless queues. I remember the invasive French customs whose cretinistically predictable searches for non-existent drugs took the edge off many an otherwise enjoyable tour. Search the big posh cars driven by the suits, I'd always say, after these unimaginative custodians had finished their fruitless checks. No one imports half a ton of heroin dressed like we are. Driving a scruffy transit van with clean meat written in the dirt on one side. We hate Crystal Palace on the other, a large knob and testicle scrawled on the back, and empty beer bottles rolling around on the floor. We're going to have to go through all this again just because Rupert Murdoch was pissed off by the fact that no one in Brussels took a blind bit of notice of him. Lord, give me strength! Only joking, of course. Brexit was an informed decision taken by the British people after serious consideration of the established facts presented intelligently and objectively by the rigorous guardians of the Fourth Estate. And anyone who suggests anything else is patronising and supercilious. So if, in a few years' time, British number plate for a band touring Europe becomes the equivalent of a plague signal on a door in medieval times, and I'm once again obliged to fill in ridiculous forms and perhaps even at my advanced age stand naked in a room with a gloved finger on my arse as I once did in Calais in the 80s, I shall hold myself proudly to attention and celebrate the fact that I am British and we have taken back control. Thank you. What a divided country we live in now. But we're human beings. You know, ultimately, most of us, even the ones who are fed full of misinformation and coming out with bottles, are basically decent people at heart. And I want to do this poem now as an illustration of how people can be brought together. And it's a very personal poem about my stepfather. When I was, my dad died when I was 10. Oh no, I'll just do the poem. I don't need to introduce it really. It's called Never Too Late. My father died when I was 10, and when she dried her tears, Mum met you in the choir. She'd known of you for years. I was so pleased when she told me that she would be your wife, and I looked forward happily to a new man in my life. But you were the classical singer who thought rock and roll was junk, and I was the bowl and boogie boy who soon became a punk. You were the civil servant for whom everything had its place, and I was the left-wing activist, out there and in your face. Yes, you were the head of the household, and I was the stroppy kid. We wound each other up for sure. We flipped each other's lid, but later we both learned so much, and something new began. And here's a poem I wrote for you, you decent, gentle man. So I went off to my own life, left you and Mum to yours. A few words about football, then the sound of closing doors. But the passing of so many years gave us both time to reflect, and slowly, oh so slowly, we forged a new respect. When you were ill the first time and found it hard to walk, I'd take you to the hospital and we would sit and talk. It felt so right and normal, and it was such a shame that it had taken all this time. Both stubborn, both to blame. Because you were the head of the household and I was the stroppy kid. We wound each other up for sure. We flipped each other's lid, but later we both learned so much and something new began. And here's a poem I wrote for you, you decent, gentle. When Mum came down with Alzheimer's, 5 years you cooked and cared. Well, we were around there every day, so many thoughts were shared. Your simple, honest loyalty. The vows you made, you'd keep. No longer the big boss man, me, no longer the black sheep. Then came that day in hospital. The end was near, we knew. You told me, I do love you, John. I said, I love you too. You took my hand and squeezed it. Our eyes were filled with tears. The first time that we said that, it took 37 years. Because you were the head of the household and I was the stroppy kid. We wound each other up for sure. We flipped each other's lid, but later we both learned so much and something new began. And here's a poem I wrote for you, you decent, gentle man. It's never too late, never too late, never too late to say you love someone. And if it wasn't too late for me and John, but it's never too late for anyone. Cheers. But I wish you all the very best for the conference. I've got stacks to do today, so I'm going to be heading off. I have got a few poetry books. My latest poetry book is this, which is very important. But this is a book of poetry for Grenfell. To raise funds for the victims' families, to raise funds for people left traumatised by a disaster which was completely unavoidable, which was corporate manslaughter. I mean, I make no bones about it. In the kind of society I want to see, we wouldn't just renationalise the NHS without compensation. We would put the people, the architects of the structure, things like the structure of the NHS, the destruction of the decent values in this country, and stuff like, you know, corporates just getting away with ridiculous bad safety provisions. All those people go on trial for crimes against the people. Apologising, the far right don't apologise anymore. We shouldn't be apologising either. I mean, I could go on about what my feelings about what happened in 1989 and Gorbachev, but there's no point in doing that here. So, alright, I'll do this poem. This is the last one from me. I'll be around for a couple of minutes with copies of my books if anyone's interested. This is £10. All the money goes to the Grenfell appeal. My book's there as well. It's £10 too. I wish you all the best for today. I wrote this poem just after the awful fire, and I'm glad to have it included in this anthology. It's called Keeping Up Appearances. The clue's in the name, Royal Borough. We serve Knightsbridge, not Latimer Road. We're here for our quality voters with a moneyed and tasteful postcode. We tolerate you since we have to, and we hope that you'll soon move elsewhere. Until then, we'll do our legal duty. If you cause any problems, beware. Your flats are all crumbling eyesores. Your neighbours are your social betters. They pay millions to live in this area. Some are next door to scroungers and debtors. So it's time to refurbish your building. Not with fire doors, sprinklers and care, but with cladding to make it look nicer so the rich can pretend you're not there. It's unsafe, you complain. That's just rubbish. We've been running it that way for years. Just be grateful you're housed in this borough and make sure that you're not in arrears. You've new skins on your homes, they look lovely. Regulations and standards are met. All done legally and within budget, so get on with your lives and don't fret. Those new skins caused a ghastly inferno. But that council is still in control, though some shall be charged with manslaughter and the rest all relieved of their role. While the people cry, justice for Grenfell, with the name of those folk left alone in a world where appearances mattered more than flesh, skin, hair, muscle and bone. Thanks very much for listening to me.